Talking with Jerry.
Well, happy Black History Month. This is week two of Black History Month. Now, don't forget to like and subscribe. Please subscribe. Getting my subscribers up. You want to keep up with things that I'm posting. Make sure you subscribe. So, as we're into the second week of Black History Month, this is episode 3. This is part 1 for week 2. You're going to learn 2 facts about Black history that you probably didn't know. So, let's get to it. So this is a golf ball. You might say, what does that have to do with Black history? Well, watch this little clip and you'll see. So today's Black history fact, Dr. George F. Grant, a Black man who was the second graduate from Harvard Dental School, got the patent because he invented the golf tee. So when next time you're watching a golf tournament, you see somebody pull one of these wooden tees out of their bag, tee up to hit off of a drive off of a par 5 or 4, you can thank Dr. Grant, the inventor of the golf tee. So isn't that interesting? The golf tee, something that is used by every golfer every time they play golf, was invented by a Black man. Now I bet you probably didn't know that, but yes, he was a dentist by trade, went to Harvard University, eventually taught at Harvard University, actually got a patent for the golf tee, but didn't do it to make money because it was something that was a passion of his that he loved. So the next time you watch a golf tournament, if you have any friends that play golf, you can let them know something that maybe they don't know that you now know, that the golf tee was invented by a Black man. Well, here's something else that is a part of history. Now we're going back to the beginnings of this country, and this is a bag of rice. So what does that have to do with Black history? Well, in short, when the plantations in the Carolinas were first being established and slaves were brought over, in the low country along North and South Carolina, because the land was very soggy and marshy, they tried to grow other crops. And one of the difficulties that they had, even with trying to grow cotton, some of the planters, was that the slaves would try to tell them that these crops are just not going to grow. And they had brought some of the slaves rice kernels over from Africa, rice, and they actually showed some of the plantation owners how to cultivate rice so that they turned their plantations into rice plantations. And these planters became extremely wealthy. They became extremely wealthy because of the slaves that introduced rice to the 13 colonies. Now, rice had been, introduced by the Spaniards into New Mexico and in other parts of the New World, but it was actually believed that slaves brought rice here to America. And there's a delicacy in parts of West Africa. Many of the things that people eat are common in West Africa that are eaten every day here in America, like rice, shrimp, grits. These things come from Africa. Also, Africans bought, watermelon, they bought yams, other delicacies from Africa that became popular here in America. But rice is important because the rice planters, just like the cotton planters, became extremely wealthy, making the southern states financially stable. There's an excellent book on this that I read. It's called Slaves in the Family, by a gentleman named Edward Ball, who was a writer for the Village Voice. And he had discovered that though he was a New Yorker, he had slaves in his family. He was a white writer, and these whispers around his dinner table, and then when other family members would come during the holidays, he went off and did research and discovered that his relatives going back hundreds of years owned slaves and became wealthy as rice planters in the South. It's a fascinating book. I learned about it many years ago on a TV show, which was only aired in New York, unfortunately. It was called Gil Noble, and he had the author on there. And it was just fascinating. And he even went back down to South Carolina, traced the lineage of black people who lived in the area where his family owned this plantation, going back hundreds of years, and found people whose descendants, whose family members were owned by his family members. And it was very interesting as he knocked on their doors. Some people greeted him, became friends, and they are still in communication with him today. But there were some people, when he told them why he was there and that his ancestors had owned their ancestors, they didn't want to talk to him. They just closed the door in his face. Anyway, that's a little bit about the historical facts and things that are in the book. But just those two things about Black history: the golf tee invented by a black man, and the introduction of rice to America, that made so many of the Southern planters wealthy, not just with cotton, but with rice, all along the low country of North and South Carolina. And that's why sometimes you're in the supermarket and you'll see rice, and it's Carolina rice. Just another contribution made by African Americans. Don't forget to subscribe, and in about 2 days, I'll be posting 2 more Black history facts, probably something you didn't know.